And perfect. Recording starting now.
Okay, great.
All right, so let's begin. And the first thing I can ask you right out of the bat, out of curiosity, can this feature film be David Cronenberg's Crimes of the Future?
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, I'm a massive David Cronenberg fan.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he's actually one of my favorite directors, in The Fly and Dead Ringers are one of my all-time or two of my all-time favorite
Yeah.
films. And yeah, honestly, I'm gonna ask you first things first. Is that were you excited about? Were you excited about when you? Were you excited to be working on it, and what can we expect from Crimes of the Future?
Yeah, no, I was hugely shocked, thrilled, amazed, intimidated, like astonished, like every possible emotion times 10, for the opportunity. It's, David's a hero. And like I moved to Korea when I was a kid for a while, and I can still remember because on the army base they would show films, and I'm pretty sure it was either Scanners or Videodrome was playing at the other video theater on the army base forever. So I just hear the ad and I could connect to Canada, and it was, so the idea that I would ever be in a room with the guy, let alone being in the room and collaborating with him, was, unbelievable. So
Yeah.
um
I was
so
more
yeah, so
shocked too because like he said that he retired after he had trouble financing his films, but he was
yeah.
able to come back with the script he had for so long, was able to finance it.
Yeah, no. So which was great, and like the caliber of actors that he can get, and yeah, and it's what can I say that I don't want to. There's nothing spoilery, I would say, but basically, it's very much a singular vision, and for the last number of films, David, was working from other people's scripts or other people's material first and foremost. This is 100% a David Cronenberg original script and a completely singular film, that's for sure. So I'm really excited for people to see it. We're pretty close to locking picture, actually. We're probably a couple weeks away. And yeah, I think if you're a Cronenberg fan and the films you mentioned, which are, just incredible, like I think you'll be happy.
That's awesome, man. Yeah, David Cronenberg, he definitely shows that you can be very successful in Canada, and you don't have to go to LA to do films. I think the closest thing he did that was like an American film was The Fly. But yeah,
Yeah,
but that was kind of like a Canadian film too, since all his movies were filmed in Toronto, every
yeah,
single one of them, and that is amazing. And you got Howard Shore involved in all his movies. He's incredible,
yeah.
and
Yeah,
yeah.
no, they've been working together since, for sure, I think Scanners, but probably before that too. So, they have such a unique and incredible collaboration. So, just to get a phone call from Howard Shore saying, like, hi, nice to meet you on the phone, and the movie's looking great, and like that was I'm still sitting there going, oh my God,
Yeah,
if this is happening.
yeah, and for someone who is trying to get into horror, like myself,
Yeah,
honestly, horror. When I was a kid, I used to be terrified of horror films. I couldn't like sit through one single like scene when it comes to a horror. But as time went on, as an adult, and see and trying to get into all these movies and everything, like as mentioned, David Cronenberg, I'm trying to get into that field too, since each filmmaker has their own specialty, their own like genre that they prefer. As for David Cronenberg, he does a lot of horror. Like he's good with doing horror. He'll do dramas here and there, but he was mostly good with horror. And his talents really shine when it comes to all the practical effects and the idea he came up with, particularly with Videodrome too, which was probably the most messed up shit of his films. It's a great film, but that was a tough film to sit through due to the fact that it was mixed between like like body horror, which really felt uncomfortable to watch, and
yeah,
you also got like a porno in between, like combined electronic porno.
yeah,
It's a fascinating film, but it says it was a tough set,
yeah,
particularly like the themes it's trying to present in the film.
yeah. Yeah, no, it's very true.
Hmm. Yeah. So yeah, I cannot wait to see it. I'm really excited to see where is this going to go to.
Yeah.
And while working as an editor, were there any like techniques that you learned or challenges that you faced in the industry?
Yeah, well, I would say that, if we want to say the industry, then it's like any creative profession, it's a lot of, it's a slow trajectory, which is to say that, like I've been editing since, I started working as an assistant in 1994. So, there's a lot of groundwork you have to make before you feel in any way successful, and certainly successful in a way that your peers who aren't in the industry would recognize. There's a lot of volunteering. There's a lot of doing whatever you could. This was for me anyway, a lot of doing, whatever small projects you possibly could is to gain your craft. And, I think in a lot of professions, you sort of prove yourself at one level, at which point you're promoted to the next level. And certainly the beginning of film, when you want to start proving yourself, say, as an editor, you can prove yourself as an assistant, but then you kind of got to start over again to prove yourself as an editor and start doing things for free and so on and so forth. And at least again, that's how it worked for me. So, it requires a lot of patience and an ability to really sort of throw yourself into whatever you're offered, because you truly never know what is going to be the thing that leads to the moment. Like certainly I've worked on jobs that I thought, well, this is, I'm really enjoying the people I'm working with, but I'm not necessarily hugely, and I'm proud of the effort I'm doing, but I'm not necessarily proud of whatever it is in the same way I would be with something else. But then a relationship on that leads to something amazing, which leads to something else amazing. Like you never know where it's going to come from. So at the beginning, there's a lot of floundering. It's not like being a lawyer where you start articling and then hopefully you get a job, or all that sort of stuff. You really have to search out any number of sources and any number of avenues to try and find your way. Obviously at the beginning I tried to point myself in the direction that I wanted to go. So back in that time in 1994, you had feature films, television, but there's probably more work in like music videos, commercials. Didn't really necessarily want to work on music videos or commercials or even television at the time. So I really tried to orient all my assistant work and volunteering work on feature films, because that was where I wanted to go. There were more feature films then too, as well, but I oriented myself that way. So in terms of the industry, that's sort of what I learned. In terms of being an editor, I would say that what I've learned is, like the most important thing in collaborating and being an editor, you are a collaborator. That's ultimately what you're doing. You're either collaborating with your assistants, sometimes on sound or on their point of view on scenes, and then you're collaborating with directors, and on television, then you're with the producers and you're collaborating with the networks. And that the most important thing you can do as a collaborator is say yes, and to take chances and trust that the people you're collaborating with will respond to them. In my earliest days, I always kind of felt like, I'm going to assemble this so well that people are going to go, it's perfect. Like, that's it. It's done. Let's lock this thing. It's sort of like the joke fantasy of every editor. But when you're working, and that's one, never going to happen. And two, nor should it. You should be doing things that at that early stage take chances and that open up avenues rather than try to make it perfect. I'd rather somebody go, boy, this really didn't work, rather than, or this really didn't work, but it made me think of something, as opposed to, well, this is just kind of boring. Like you really have to sort of push yourself, first to learn your craft and then to push beyond your craft and develop your artistry, and being open to failure and being open to collaboration are the most important things on that journey, I think.
Yeah, see, I kind of do agree with you on that. Everyone's going to have their own style and their own interpretation, so not a lot of people are going to uh, get are going to mix together since you both have different styles. But you do bring up one thing that is 100% like true, and that does take patience and it does take time to learn everything. And then I did a documentary that explores patience. So, and someone once told me that patience is a virtue,
Yeah.
and it was very tough to learn to get used to. Doesn't matter uh, who this person is, or you have a disability like autism. And having autism myself, I do have a hard time trying to trying to understand patients, but it does have context, and it does take time. It takes time to master your craft. It takes time to, you know, explore different ideas and to get good at this job. And you have to start in one job in order to advance forward. And from what I have learned too is that whatever opportunity you can get, you take it to heart and pass it. Like don't screw up. You build trust, and the idea of this job is to gain the key, like for being an editor is doing an editor is also something. It gives you the idea of getting a job. It can also help you as a director as well, since you're still making something, you're putting the pieces together, and you get to think of the pacing, how the actors act, how can you what do you see visually, like that can help as directors as well. So, like looking at the picture and see what can fit well, and what can put together, like looking for the sweet spot. And every editing, from my point of view as well, is that you're basically like matching the beat, like a rhythm, like, like a tempo, like 1, 2, 3, cut, 1, 2, 3, cut, 1, 2, 3, cut, so you get that sweet spot.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's how I view editing. Is how, like, when you find a sweet spot, it gives you the right opportunity to cut. You can keep long scenes if you want, depending on the take, but
Yeah.
sometimes it could drag on a little too much. And it's good to to do cut, find a sweet spot, and to cut in betweens and everything.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Rhythm is everything in editing, and as you say, sometimes it's negating the rhythm and sometimes it's following the rhythm. But, sorry, just a second. There's just a text here from my daughter. I'm going to make sure everything's okay.
No worries.
Okay. Yeah, no, it's all very true, like, and keeping yourself, like there's a discipline to things where you're not, sometimes, yeah, it's not cutting. Sometimes it's getting rid of stuff you love. Sorry, she just texted it again. Let me just make sure. She's sorry, just be one quick second here. Sorry. That's another thing. You never put that, you never tell your kids, hold on. Or, like if they're texting, especially teenagers, it's kind of incredible that they're texting you anyway. So, oh, hold on, here it is.
I get it.
Got it. Okay.
What were we saying? You're talking about.
Well, just talking about rhythm and part of editing sometimes is getting out of everybody's way too, like allowing other people to collaborate and to work through their process. And certainly at the beginning, you can be more defensive and say things like, I think that's crap, or no, I don't want to do that, or no, I think we should do that, or no, I tried that. That's the worst thing you can do.
Yeah, and the software you have to use too, like there are a lot of different softwares that editors use, like Premiere Pro and Avid.
Yeah.
And depending on the software, you need to learn that too. You gotta learn how the things work. And with the short time that you have in post-production, you need to get that stuff done very quickly.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, so, but you know, like I know Avid very well. Though still I'll go into another editor's room and they'll be doing something and I'll be saying, oh my God, what did you just do? And they'll, you know, teach me a new trick. I'm trying to learn Premiere because I think that more and more it's becoming more of a tool in the industry. But you know, a lot of what I do requires sort of a shared media situation, and Premiere is not quite up to that yet. But yeah, this knowing the software inside out, especially at the beginning of your career when you're going to be asked to do a lot of things that at where I'm at now, they have assistants to do. But you know, the earliest stages, you're doing your exporting, you're doing your transcoding, you're doing your inputting of media. So knowing that stuff inside and out is really important.
The one thing you should know about Premiere Pro that it doesn't crash. Unlike Avid, where it could crash your computer and you can lose everything, Premiere Pro doesn't. But it's still important to save your work, because if it crashes and you get that sweet cut and you don't save.
No, we've all, it's, there's nothing worse than, you know, I always set my auto save to pretty fast, every 5 minutes. So,
and you can always do Control S every time you just like, oh, this is good. Control S, Control S. It's good to make that as a habit where you do Control S, Control S, Control S.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And since you brought up feature films, I would love to work on a feature film myself as well. But I also, looking at your resume, you have also worked on some of the biggest shows on the streaming platform. You have worked on The Handmaid's Tale, which is one of the biggest shows on the streaming platform. And then while working on the show, was that something that you had to go to US for, or were you able to do the editing room in Canada?
No, the editing, we shoot The Handmaid's Tale here in Toronto, and there's a service producer, which is there's a Canadian producer and Canadian executive producer and post-production on it. So we have always done all the editing here in Toronto. Initially, since we were shooting here, our showrunner would come up. Last year with the pandemic, we went down for about 6 months, and then once we got up shooting again, we had very strict COVID protocols. So we ended up editing entirely remotely, be it with the directors or with the producers. So the producers were in Los Angeles, and Bruce, our showrunner, was in Los Angeles, and we would, we had a remote editing software, sort of hardware setup called Clearview that basically sent a zoom. It looked like this. Essentially, you could see my face, like where my face is small in the screen would be me, and then Bruce would also be there small, and then the full screen would be the Avid. And I would hit play and it would just automatically be sent to him. So so we did that entirely here. And I do think that there'll be more opportunities to do that sort of stuff now, because people see the possibilities of what's can be done.
And with COVID too, it was good for the post-production crew, since they were working at home, like it's on computers and everything. You don't have to travel anymore but now with the pandemic. But back with one of the old days like that. And honestly, I thought The Handmaid's Tale was an American show. I thought that was an American show because I saw it got like tons of nominations at Emmys and Golden Globes. I thought it was something that was done in the US. I had no idea that was a Canadian show, and that is insane.
Well, it's definitely it's shot with the Canadian crew. Yeah, the post-production, sound, pictures, everything is all Canadian. VFX is all Canadian. The money is American. The actors are American and Canadian.
Yeah, Elizabeth Moss is in the show, I think, is he?
Yeah, and she's American, and the writers are American, and the network it streams on Hulu in the States. So that, it's by definition, like in the Canadian Screen Awards, it's an American show. But there's a vast number of Canadians that work on it and bring it to the level that it is. So and now with the remote, I was going to say that there's pretty strict security protocols with the media on a lot of these shows, like where all the files you're working with as you edit have to be in a room that's locked, that isn't accessible to the internet, and so on and so forth. But there's now these editing softwares that enable you to stream your computer. So when we went into lockdown again in January, I was literally working from a computer in my basement that was mirroring my Avid that was down on King Street. And then I did a show right after that, this pilot for Amazon where my Avid was in Los Angeles and I was in Toronto, but I was streaming my Avid over the internet on an iMac. So, the possibilities for sort of expanding international work I think, are great since that, or have been enhanced by what COVID has wrought.
Yeah.
What it has taught us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, another show you worked on too was Vikings, but I got around to watching the first episode of the show, and I don't think you edited that one. I don't think
No. I did.
Yeah, there was a bunch of episodes in Vikings, editors in Vikings. I noticed it on the IMDb, but it was still amazing that you got the chance to work on something on that show particularly, since that's like a big high budget show, like kind of like Game of Thrones level. We looked at the sets and costumes and the cast that he assembled, and unlike the Handmaid's Tale where it's it seems like a very simple to make show, since everything takes place in the 1800s. I'm saying, is that correct?
No, it's a dystopia, so it's contemporary, but the costumes, they're sort of it's a sort of puritanical American theocracy, and they forced women into wearing those uniforms, but it's like an alternate present day.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, in the case of Vikings too, what were some of your like exciting moments working on this show, and were you able to edit the opening sequence too, or was that all CGI? Because I remember the opening sequence being really impressive for like the editing, and it makes it sound put together. Like, were you able to edit something like that, or was that already done by the previous editors?
That was it was actually, I don't even know if I worked on either the third or fourth season. And so by that point it had been established, but those things generally are built by an entirely different, like they're commercial houses or VFX houses that design and build those credit sequences themselves. They're sort of, you're commenting on them, say in the first season of a show as your editor, as a producer, but that's generally done alongside by a company that does that specifically. For me, the fun of working on Vikings was sort of these amazingly large action sequences that, that's a lot of fun,
I'm not that far. I only saw the first episode. I'm hoping to watch more soon, but yeah, you're getting me really excited for these action sequences. I love action stuff. Like I can just like eat them up for how awesome, for how entertaining action stuff scenes are. So and some of the best is, and there's my phone's going off. So I have to probably mute that so I don't get anything else.
Do not worry, that happened. I got one already.
Yeah. So I think it was a lot of fun. I'm very curious how they put these action sequences together.
Well, it depends. Like I worked on, there's kind of two schools in action, and in some cases, people, what we say, they just hose it down, and they have like 3 or 4 cameras, and they're running them at all times, and so you just have reams and reams and reams of footage. And then, and certainly for big scale battles or whatever, that can happen. And then they'll be more specific when these little individual handheld battles where the stunts are entirely worked out. Yeah. Like the Hong Kong School of Action, they actually have an editor on set, and they shoot it. Like they do the first shot, and then they do the next shot, and then they cut it together, and they go, yeah, that works. And now let's do the third shot. Like it's that specific.
Were you able to work? Since you brought that up, were you able to work with any visual effects stunt coordinators? Does that exist in the show? Because I actually, in my school, Toronto Film School, I actually got the chance to. One of my teachers knows the stunt artist who worked on Shang-Chi, Legend in the Legend of the Ten Rings. Lee, my apologies. I need to look at his name again, but I have met him, and he does talk about how he's able to work with Disney, bring all these action sequences together, and he works closely with the editors and post-production crew in order to get the action sequences right. And I'm just very curious. And did you end up getting that same experience with or work with these types of people with Vikings?
I have not on Vikings. That's sort of they shot that in Ireland, and we were editing in Toronto, so that was very much you just got the footage. The one I worked on a show called Penny Dreadful, which was like a horror show that was also shot in Ireland, but we would follow the producer to be where they were because they wanted to edit. They wanted the editor where they were. So we were shooting this action sequence with the second unit action director, who, I mean, at the time I just couldn't believe it. His name was Vic Armstrong, and Vic was Harrison Ford's stunt double on Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Oh,
So he was the guy who was pulled behind the truck, basically, and all that sort of stuff. And so Vic was the stunt director for this action scene we were picking up. So we were working very closely, like, okay, this shot to this, but it was all in the planning stage, because essentially what Vic, when the stunt people would do is they would sort of pre-block and pre-shoot a sequence with the stunt performers, not the main actors, and then we would cut it together and work on it and talk about it and say, yeah, we probably need something here and something from here. And then once they had that sort of built and we had all worked on it together, then they would actually bring in the principal cast who are doing, for the stunts as well as the stunt performers, so on and so forth. So that's the closest I've had to do that, and that's great. And certainly on like a Shang-Chi or something like that, those action sequences they do what's called a previs, where things are built entirely beforehand.
Yeah,
so,
and I finally got around to watching Shang-Chi on Disney Plus the other day, and
oh yeah,
it is great. Like, it is fantastic, and the action sequences they were able to put together, in particular with the Asian culture, the martial arts, and kung fu and chi and everything. It was fantastic. I think they just did a great job with that film.
Yeah,
if only I saw it in theaters though. But unfortunately, I had no time to see it in theaters. However, they did brought the IMAX format into Disney Plus. So second best thing. I saw it. Yeah, I watched it on IMAX format on Disney Plus, and yeah, it was great. Like, the IMAX was incredible.
Yeah, no, I saw it in the theater with my son, and yeah, that first fight in the bus is just fantastic.
And you got the typical Marvel humor as well, where you got the guy recording on the phone, like, okay, and doing it live, and you can see that he's doing this, doing that, like stuff like that. It's like, that's great. I enjoy that stuff.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and and what was your experience on working with the DTC, the direct to scale account? Was it like something that was tough to digest, or was it easy to get connected to get along with everyone?
Oh yeah, I mean, certainly the DTC is certainly the path to like at the very beginning of your career, like it's harder. Like the DGC are sort of projects you want to try to get on, and certainly I worked as a DGC assistant for years before I was an editor in the DGC. And the union is great. Once you're in, you can sort of, you get a healthcare plan, you get a dental plan, like things that are really essential then, and that you don't have without union membership, because you're just kind of going from job to job to job. But and so and the DGC, they previously had more resources for people starting out in post, and they keep saying they're going to develop them, like more of an apprentice program. It doesn't exist yet. But certainly I do think the DGC needs to be a little more proactive in training the next generation of assistants, who then go on to be the next generation of editors. In terms of the people who are in the DGC, it's like anything, but everybody's great. I think we're a community of peers and people who are trying to do the best work possible. So it's harder. You sort of generally have to get established on other projects before you can sort of gain access to the DGC. There's that double-edged sword of like, you need the experience to get the experience. But certainly it's the way that it's, if there's not an actual apprenticeship program within DGC, it is how it operates informally. Like your assistants will, assistants will cut scenes from the episode that I'm working on, and then we can discuss them and so on and so forth. And as they get better and more ready to take their next steps, you've been working with them and you feel comfortable recommending to other producers. So yeah, the DGC is certainly a very good organizing principle for the post-production world.
Good to know. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So what else is there? Oh, let's see. I'm trying to think what any other questions I can ask you, because there's
Sure.
it seems like you had a really good career as of now, like playing, like editing all these fantastic shows and everything. Were there times that you like interested in doing like reality shows or anything like that?
Not necessarily hugely. I love working on documentary, which is sort of an unconstructed reality show. Reality wasn't really an option when I was starting out in film. Like, they just didn't really exist. So, but I certainly think that nowadays it's an entirely viable way to get your chops up. Because, like, even if they are slightly constructed realities, there's still a tremendous amount of work you need to do to build the story. I love documentaries. Especially love sort of feature documentaries, and I've had the great opportunity to work with filmmakers like Kevin McMahon and Alan Zweig, like really artistic feature makers who sort of push the envelope, and that's thrilling to do.
Yeah, Sarah Polley, who did a documentary called The Stories We Tell. I think that's one of the best Canadian documentaries of all time. Like, it was.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, completely agree.
Yeah, like but I love documentaries myself too. I even remember doing a documentary class where it's pretty simple. You watch documentaries and you do like reports on them. And I remember there are like lots of documentaries that post fun of mockumentaries. There's also mockumentaries like The Office and everything where it's heavily scripted and there's like nonfiction ones and they're scripted, and there's fiction ones that are heavily scripted. Like they always find a way to entertain people. They always find and plus can be educational as well. We take a look at recently with The Tiger King, which is insane. Like that show is insane on its own, but we learn new people about that show, particularly how they became so famous within everything through these documentaries. Really with that show came around, everyone knows Daryl Baskin, everyone knows the Tiger King himself, and how crazy these people are at going to war with each other. It's crazy. It was definitely something that gets us excited for. And season 2 is coming out, so I can't wait to. I wonder how much insanity is going on from there now. So
still probably crazy.
Yeah, definitely.
So you're in your final year at Toronto Film School, or you still have a couple years, or where are you at right now?
This is my final term, final year. I'll be done in December.
Wow! Congratulations.
Yeah, and we're in the career development stages now, and it's pretty exciting. But plus getting to know people from the industry too, is also an honor too. Seeing how the work that they have done and how we can learn more about the industry and everything.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. No, it's great. I think this is a very valuable project. Like, certainly, I didn't. I went to university and studied film, and then you just kind of get thrown to the wolves. There was no sort of nothing like this to incentive, that sort of thing. And I should say, actually, because I got an amazing piece of advice from my university professor when I was heading to, start my career, because I was very like, for my, initial jobs, like, should I get my demo reel? Should I do all this sort of stuff? And he just very patiently said to me, look, all they want to know is that you can do the job and you're a good person to go to work with. go to lunch with. Which was to say, they don't need you on your first job to be the person that solves the creative things. They don't, in some cases, you work with people who don't even want your creative input. They need you to do the job they've hired you to do. And I had to remember that because I was so incredibly keen and, well, tell me what creative thing you want me to do. It's like, no, you just need me to get lunch. I'm gonna be great at getting you lunch. And that at the beginning is a part of what you have to do. Like it's proving to people constantly that, well, if I can do this, maybe, I can do this. So give me the opportunity to do this other thing too, this more demanding thing. So.
Yeah. Yeah, but hearing what you're saying, yeah, like getting jobs like that it's not the greatest, but it's at least you're going somewhere. You're meeting new connections. You hope to take this opportunity by heart, and just because you're stuck with this stuff doesn't mean you get to work there for the rest of your life. Like you're still getting paid. You're still making connections, and the more connections you meet, the higher profit you can become.
Yeah, exactly.
And which reminds me of something. Are you interested in directing a project at all of your own? Like, are you interested in doing like a feature film or short film one day? Do you like
Sure.
renting a film, putting everything together?
Sure, I'd love to. I've made some shorts in the past, and obviously I'd love to do that sort of thing too. I have a family and financial responsibilities, so certainly at the level at which I'd be available, or essentially I'd love to, but I have other considerations that sort of take precedent right now. But hopefully at some point I'll force myself to concentrate on something like that, because I think I'd really enjoy doing it. And I think that keeping that dream alive is really important, no matter what you're doing in the industry.
Yeah, that was my biggest goal myself, is to be a director. But I also love editing too. I'm very good at it, and I really enjoyed it. I liked it, but it does help me become a better director, because as I mentioned, I find a sweet spot in looking at the performance of the actors and how can you do your film and this and that. And I recently completed a short film of my own. In the post-production process, and I'm hoping to get it done soon. It's gonna be something special. It's a special idea of mine, and I'm hoping to show the world soon.
Oh, that's great! Congratulations! I wish you all the best with that.
Yeah, thanks, man. Yeah, I really appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah. Now I apologize. I do have to get going. Do you have maybe one more question that I can answer, or it's up to you?
One question is it's I don't think it's never a question per se. Yes, I think it's more of like, it's just great meeting you, getting connected in the industry, and just hoping we can work together in the future, man. Or maybe you could be the industry person for me, or any other projects or whatever. Because it's great to meet new connections and to like build this community.
Absolutely, completely agree. So please, feel free to reach out again, and anything I can do to help, I'm happy to, or chat things through or whatever. So sometimes I can get, especially working on television, I can get sort of at times extraordinarily busy, and I might not be able to reply right away or whatever, but please.
I totally understand. You are working on The Handmaid's Tale, which is one of the biggest shows out right now, and I will check that out soon. I think it was on Amazon Prime. I think the last time I checked, I know I saw it somewhere. It's on my streaming service.
It's on Crave.
Oh, it's on Crave. Okay. Yeah, I know I've seen it somewhere. Yeah. Yeah, it was great meeting you, man. And let's stay in touch. We have each other's emails, and I think your number is on the DTC resume page. I think.
I think so. Yeah, I think that's likely. Yeah. So feel free to reach out. And I'll happily do what I can.
Awesome. Thank you so much for your time, man.